All right, welcome to the second First Chesapeake chat session. I'm Victoria Mulvihill, and I am a First Chesapeake alumni, and I will be helping to introduce the First Chesapeake chat session sponsored by Newport News Shipbuilding. I would like to thank this session's sponsor, Lidos, for making it possible. The session today is Storytime. Let's hear from a head ref. Just some housekeeping. We will let the speaker present and then open up for questions later, but you may always put your comments in the chat. And I would like to turn it over to this session speaker.
Hi, everybody. I'm back, and basically this session is mainly just Steve, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and all his experience, I guess, from alumni on up, right?
Yeah. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, sounds
Okay.
good.
Good afternoon. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Shade. I'm a first alumni from Team 7. No longer exists, but it's was based out of Baltimore area. And I've been involved with First for 21 years now, believe it or not. And for the last, about 10 years, I've been one of the head referees local in the First Chesapeake area. Before that, I've spent time as a team mentor, as a college mentor, doing various volunteer roles, and kind of settled into the head referee role for a number of years now. By day, I'm a senior modeling and simulation engineer at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab in Laurel.
So what got you interested in being a ref first? I mean, there's obviously, in the world, in the FRC world especially, you can either go like the FTA route or the head ref route or whatever. What dragged you, called you into being a ref? On that side?
So refereeing has actually evolved quite a bit over the years. First time I refereed, Aiden Brown actually got me into this, along with for those of you who know who my wife is, Anne, dragged us into this back in 2005, and we've tried a number of different positions, and I've kind of stuck with the referee and head referee type role. It's great to be next to a field. You get the best seat in the house. You get a little bit of everything. You get to interact with the drive teams. You get to work with a great group of volunteers, both your referee team and a large number of people in and around the field. And so it's kind of an area I've just kind of continued to specialize in. A lot of my interests are actually in game challenges and the game design and just general first strategy for that matter.
What would you suggest for someone out there that wanted to eventually be a head ref? What path would you suggest somebody takes that, let's say, a current graduate or something that's in college right now?
So to become a head referee, First Robotics stipulates that you have to meet a few criteria. You have to be 23 years old. You have to have 4 years of First Robotics competition referee experience. So before we consider any new individuals as part of the head referee team, we want you to become a referee. To become a referee, pretty much the only criteria are that you have to be 19 years old and have graduated high school. At that point, you need to volunteer for one of your local district events. And from there, let your head referee know that you're interested in one day potentially becoming a head referee. With that said, many cases, some of those roles fill early, or there's other plans in place with existing volunteers to fill those referee roles. So your choices are, you can go do something else for a little bit and show your interest, talk to the head referees, let them know you're interested in becoming a referee. Great roles to get exposure to your head refs: scorekeeper, field reset, inspection, Anything in and around the field is great, and talk to your head referee, let them know you're interested, and they can help you. And they will help you, because we're always looking to grow our referee volunteer teams. Sometimes during the off-season, supporting the off-season events is also a great way, if they have space at some of those events, to try out the position without the full set of requirements that first stipulates for the official events.
Okay. What would you say the hardest thing is as far as transitioning from a referee to a head ref?
So it's my belief that we ask more of our referees than just about any other volunteer position on the field. Transitioning that to the head referee position it's a huge jump. Most of the head referee position is leadership driven. It's management driven. You're looking at across the field now. You're not just responsible for your little area of the field and understanding what's going on in your area for a match. You're understanding what's going on in the match, in between matches, and a lot of it is communication driven. There's always this push and first through things like the Woody Flowers Award to discuss, the art and science of communication. And that's very much true for the head referee role, because you're always either communicating with the teams, you're communicating with your MC and game announcers, who are your voice. As a head referee, they're my voice to the audience. You're communicating with your referee team to make sure that everybody's doing the same thing and we can get consistency. We know that the teams want consistency, and that is the biggest challenge that we're trying to. We're always looking for ways to get consistency across not just the duration of one event, but so that the first event is called the same way as the last event. And taking on that responsibility is a big deal for all of your head referees.
I guess I'd like to open it up to anybody who has any questions you want to ask in the chat area there as well, going forward of Steve being a head ref, or even questions about how he decided what to do after he got out of school.
Or volunteering in general.
Yeah, or volunteering in general. That's true. So feel free to put any questions out there. I don't see any coming in right now, but let's see. Okay. Okay, here's a question. You mentioned that you're really fascinated by FRC strategies. Do you have any specific examples of WOW strategies?
Really going back in the Wayback Machine. Team 71 back in 2001, and not my favorite game, but they knocked it out of the park more than any other team that year with their 510-point strategy that just vaulted them to their championship win.
What was
so the 2001 game was Diabolical Dynamics. It was a 4 versus 0 game against the clock, where all 4 teams had to work together, in essence, as quickly as possible to score points. And the closest modern first game we have to that is probably Recycle Rush in many respects. But they just were, from the get-go of the season to the end, and I know there's some video out on YouTube from that team that year, but they just were able to dominate from the get-go. So it's really brought through. That's where kind of a lot of there was always strategy before them, but they took the cake in being able to really find ways to execute the strategy well that year. Other years, 2014 is actually my favorite game. Is the aerial assist game, because it left open so many strategies, and so it was fascinating to watch. It was fascinating to referee, and it was fascinating to coach. So it had everything, but it was real easy for a spectator to come in and figure out what was going on. And with that, the Chesapeake Regional that year saw some really unique gameplay in that the all three teams, instead of just having specific positions, were kind of flexing up and down the field, so you didn't know which way the ball was going to come into the field, and how they were going to advance each of the large playground balls down the field during each cycle of the game.
All right, that year was the one where you got extra points for passing it between your alliance members, right?
Yep. So every if you were able to get a different assist in or possession basically in each zone of each third of the field, that would give you maximum points, and you got bonus points for shooting it over the truss in the middle of the field, but the real kicker was, can you get all of your alliance partners involved in moving the large balls down the field?
What did you? I guess. What do you think about this year's? I mean, even though
we didn't get to see it play out, really, it was just starting to get interesting.
Right.
I thought this was a very well balanced game. Lots of opportunities for scoring. I think the key with this year's game was going to be which teams, if you really were going to play the ranking point game, which teams could best utilize potentially some low goal scorers in order to really really be able to cycle through the power cells quickly. That was the big challenge for this year, and I think I think there was a lot of room for growth in the coming weeks that we didn't get to see, or at least not yet.
Yep. Well, it's usually the first week that got canceled is the one that usually when you start seeing people really getting aggressive and knowing what they're doing better. Anybody else have any other questions out there? I mean, just while we're waiting for something else to come in, Steve, it's kind of like, what impact did you being on an FRC team have in your choices for a career?
I still tell many people I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. If you were to completely ask, I got into FRC really. So when I was involved as a student in FRC was the only thing that existed. There was no Lego League was a pilot, and FTC was still not even existing concept yet. So I decided to go to college, and I started realizing my freshman year of college that, hey, I know this place that has a whole lot of engineers that might be able to help me out in a couple years, find a job. So that's kind of what started bringing me back, as I realized it was a built-in network. And we now have, if we look at our head referee team, we now have 4 of our 6 Chesapeake first Chesapeake head referees are alumni from all over the place. We've used, and so it's a built-in system, built-in network for many of us at this point, and we keep supporting each other and keep having fun with it.
This is a good question, and it's up on the screen there. How have you seen or not seen Grace's professionalism change as a head ref?
It's always an evolving thing, but a lot of what used to happen, if I go even back 15 years, back in the early 2000s, things were just very different. Teams you could do back-to-back timeouts. You could just do some different things. For the most part now, we're very lucky in this area. I've not had any significant issues, at least on any recurring type basis, of anyone not being graciously professional, and that's a good thing. Many of us feel that we know set our expectations high, and the teams meet them consistently. And then if we need something, they're there to help out, and just like all the other volunteers, we're there to make sure we have a good event. So,
I mean, right along with that, do you think it's stayed the same from like 15 years ago till now? It's it changes every year, obviously, and so do the people, but
it's one of the things that actually has stayed relatively the same year in, year out. It's evolves. The fact that so when I started in FRC, you would spend 3 years on typical. Most teams would spend about 3 years just learning how to build a drivetrain. There was no kit of parts, robot chassis and drive system. That's been one of the greatest advancements in the program, is to be able to get everybody driving their first year, because then they can participate, they can score points, they can be part of the whole event system, and not just be frustrated that they can't move. And then so the full change in, we've gone from just the COTS, and then continuing from there, the COTS revolution in first has been a wonderful thing, because it's giving a lot more teams the opportunity to play at a higher level than before that. And you're seeing that response affect how things work in the pits too, and around the field, because more teams can do more things, and they're able to help each other in different ways now.
I'll wait for another question out there anyway, but I guess the one thing that I kind of wonder is, as time has changed going forward, have you noticed more alumni coming on board as volunteers?
Let's go back to our the 2014 Chesapeake Regional. I was thinking about just that field reset crew earlier when I was thinking back through some of the things we've been looking at. That field reset part of that field reset crew. Now we have from that field reset crew in First Chesapeake alone. We have 1 FTA. We've had 2 head referees, and a number of other key positions just come from that single field reset crew. And some of those promotions just came this year in some cases. So we've had a lot of really, we're very lucky that, our first alumni base is supporting, and that's what we're hoping for. And so both from, executing events, I love to see alumni come and say, hey, I want to be a referee. What can you do to help me? And professionally too, is I'm always looking for first alumni as potential colleagues down the road.
Yeah, I've actually been impressed with some of the kids that I've mentored over the last few years. Is like when they go to get their first job out of college, they go for a job interview, and they actually find out it's a first alumni that's interviewing them, which obviously gives them a leg up in getting either internships or real jobs. So it's a good thing. Does anybody else out there have any other questions? I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, Steve, or not. But here we go. Here's one that just came in.
Okay.
It's a long one too. Have you mentored or volunteered for any other programs than FRC?
So I've pretty much been involved with FRC since the 1990s. Just a lot of it's just due to, and we've helped, my wife and I have helped at some FLL or FTC specific tasking in Maryland as we've been asked over the years on and off. But most of our focus is usually FRC based, just because we met doing FRC, and that's what existed since we've been doing this. College and first, generally I say I would recommend to most people most freshmen and sophomores take a couple years off, volunteer at events. It's a great time to do things like field reset, maybe inspect, do something that's of a more limited scope. Those options just didn't exist. So a couple of things, those options didn't exist as much back in the early 2000s. I mean, the Chesapeake Regional didn't even exist until my senior year of college.
Wow.
The DC Regional didn't exist until I was a professional, and with a few years experience. So take the time, especially with the district system, go support some of your events on the weekends. It keeps you in touch, starts to build a network, and then you can kind of figure out what positions might be of interest. As far as the team support goes, I was lucky. University of Maryland, so I have my undergraduate degrees from the University of Maryland. We had the month of January off, so I was able to kind of support my hometown team for the month of January, and then once school started back, I kind of had to pull back some. But I had 3 weeks while I was working whatever I could work, and that I could support the team for a few years. And then show up at some events when I was able to show up at some events. Couldn't do it all the time. College came first.
Sure. And you know, I guess the other one is the other kind of thing that slows you down a little bit is you have two young daughters, right?
So yeah, Ann and I have two elementary age daughters now. And so that kind of takes precedent on a lot of things. And you get to a point also where you're also looking at your career and career development. When I started becoming a head referee for this latest stint, that was in line with my graduate school work. That I was starting to take classes in the evening to work on my graduate degree, and it just wasn't feasible to mentor a team plus do that. Volunteer. So stepping into an event volunteer role was a much less time commitment. Still a lot of time commitment, but much less than working with a team day in, day out.
The build season intensity can really suck up all your time. So.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions we have? I think.
But you know, first or working. What do I do when I'm not volunteering for first or working? So we do a lot of projects around the house. As soon as I step foot in the door, I become dad, which is probably my most important job right now. Just typical family life, doing things with my kids, taking them to dance class, whatever, just projects around the house, and typical family things.
And I have to say, I've seen them several times at some of our events and things that you guys bring them along and get them to enjoy I mean, they seem to enjoy seeing all the robots and all the people, and you've been doing this long enough, they know all the people besides, which is kind of cool. So.
And that's the other thing. If you see me, I'm very accessible. If you have questions or you want to know more about what's going on, come grab me. If I'm not by the field between matches, come grab me in the pits as I'm walking around. Say hi, introduce yourself at events. I'm always interested in meeting new people.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? No, I think. Are you back in there, Victoria?
Hi.
No.
So, as a alumni, I got on this first team. I got to see it from the student perspective, and it was really cool to watch the head ref job and just the craziness. So, my question for you was just how do you manage all that and make sure that those calls are brought out and called correctly during the competition?
So that we are given a process. So HQ is very good about giving us a process that they want everybody to follow, and we do as good of a job as we can with that. But a lot of it is you're looking at trying to prioritize what has to be done now, move things along. How can you influence the flow of the event, and just to keep things running on time. It's a big juggling match, and you just, by doing it for as many years as you can, you just get better at juggling how the whole thing kind of moves along. You're relying on your team, so everybody has a role, and that includes your. It's not just me as a head ref. I'm relying on my refs to get all of their information into their tablets. I'm relying on the game announcer and the MC to watch and help with the flow of the event. Relying on our FTAs to get everybody connected quickly. Queuing to help get everybody on the field. It's a big team effort that we all kind of have a common goal to execute. 80 qualifying matches plus another 15 to 20 playoff rounds. And we do our best to keep that on time and keep it moving. And it's a huge challenge and hugely rewarding when you can make it work.
What was your first match like as head ref?
I have no idea. There's very few matches. So as a head ref, there's very few matches that I actually remember. Because when you stand there and you watch 80 matches in a weekend, over 100 matches in a weekend, you have a very short memory, and you kind of go from match to match to match to match, and it just the detail you remember very specific details for a very few matches over the many years I've been doing this. It's always hard to throw cards. You remember some of those and specific situations. You remember. You go back and look at different things that have happened over the years. The positions evolved quite a bit. What we now ask our referees to do is very much what we asked our head referees to do 15 years ago. We're the first robotics specifically has just evolved significantly over that time. And we're asking our head referees to do even more in order to improve communications between the field and the teams, and just to try to get a positive experience for everyone, the teams and the volunteers.
All right. It looks like we're pretty much running out of time here.
One more question.
Go ahead and get that one, Steve.
Sure. And you were a student also for skills. So the first community, when I was a student, there was about 300 teams. I can still rattle off most of the team numbers between 0 and 300 off the top of my head, which is just and where they're located. The community, especially since districts, has it's gotten bigger and smaller at the same time. So with the district model, the fact that we're playing kind of in Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia, we're all getting to know each other really well now, which is a good thing, because we're all going to be supporting each other in many respects. The loss is you do lose some of your national and international connections because of that. But if the goal is to get more teams, you are never going to be able to keep that same level of community without evolving it some. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a natural evolution of what's going on, and but it's a good thing in the long run.
All right, so I guess we're just going to go ahead and close this out. Thanks for coming on, Steve, and I'll let
thanks for having
Victoria close it off.
Just thank you again to you, Steve, and our sponsor, Leidos. We have a short video from them that we would like you to watch, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Knowledge. It's where innovation begins. It's what leads us to discovery and motivates us to succeed. It's why we ask the tough questions and what leads us to the answers. At Leidos, we're standing behind those working to improve the world's health, safety, and efficiency. Leidos.